Russia have shown off its newest armor during a huge military parade in Moscow to mark 70 years since the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II. Thousands of troops marched through Red Square, and there was applause as the country's first new tanks for 40 years went on display. China's President Xi Jinping was among heads of state attending, although many Western leaders stayed away because of Russia's role in the conflict in eastern Ukraine. Well, we can go now to our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucet. She's been following the day's events in Moscow for us. Lise.
Yes, well, this morning was a procession of military hardware and an extraordinary flypast above Red Square, a highly official occasion of a defining moment in Russian history. The moment now is a people's moment. Just take a look at the scenes behind me. The streets are swollen, including the entrance into Red Square. Tens of thousands of people, a crowd estimated 250,000, has now taken to the streets of Moscow. And the placards they are holding are photographs of their loved ones. We were just down in the crowd, young children, old veterans from the Second World War, remembering the memory of their loved ones. Russia, the former Soviet Union, paid a staggering price for its involvement in the Second World War. More than 26 million people died, soldiers and civilians, in what Russians called the Great Patriotic War. And unexpectedly, it was Vladimir Putin who went to the head of this march, holding a photograph of his father, who was badly injured in the war. One of his brothers died of starvation. It's been a momentous day here in Moscow. Our diplomatic correspondent, Bridget Kendall, takes a look at some of the highlights.
The pinnacle of months of preparation. A massive parade on Red Square to mark 70 years since the Nazi surrender in World War II and Russia's role in its defeat. It's an anniversary which has become almost sacred to most Russians, and this year they've pulled out all the stops. Over 16,000 troops marching across the cobbles, including soldiers in World War II uniforms, foreign troops and forces from across the country. The hardware included one of Russia's most advanced new battle tanks, a display reminiscent of days when the Soviet Union used to flaunt its military might. This spectacle is one of the most impressive displays on Red Square in years. It was probably one of the most defining moments in Russian history. But it's also, of course, all about today's tension. This show of force is also to demonstrate that Russia can protect its interests and defend itself against its enemies. But the shadow over this parade is Ukraine. Next to President Putin on the podium, not Russia's wartime European allies, but the president of China. Most Western leaders shunned the invitation to attend the parade in protest over Russia's role in the conflict in Ukraine. It's estimated of some 60 world leaders invited, less than half agreed to appear. For most Russians, it won't spoil the party, but the cloud of Europe's latest simmering conflict won't keep the skies completely blue and clear. Bridget Kendall, BBC News, Moscow.
Well, many Russians told us that they were disappointed that most Western leaders decided to stay away from this occasion, but it doesn't mean that it's taken away from the extraordinary importance of events like this. Let's just take a closer look at the crowds just slowly streaming past us. Sometimes they erupt into chants of Russia, Russia, but most of them are marching silently, holding the grainy photographs of their grandfathers, great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers who died in the Second World War. This is still a moment seared in the identity of many Russians, a day in a national consciousness that helps to define the Russia of today. For Vladimir Putin, occasions like this are important for him to emphasize both the popular strength and the military might of Russia. But it is also a day that has a real resonance all across the Russian society.
Lise Doucet, live from Moscow. Thank you. The World Health Organization has declared Liberia to be free of Ebola. This after the country reached the milestone